building. High priestess in the building, didn't let my fears kill me. Transmuted my pain in that cleanse in the rain. Down out, I was worth it and I conquered my demons. I accepted my purpose and the goddess I became. All right, let's jump into it. I have a special guest, is Christian, also CH Reiki Healing, right? Yeah, it's right in front of me. I wanted to, of course, you tell who you are, because it's more than Reiki. You do a lot more than just Reiki. So wanted you to just let the viewers know who you are, what all you do, and then of course I do want to go into what brought you here, because I love the every healer has a background and a tale of how they became who they are, right? And I would love to
Yes.
go into that.
So my past started off when I was very young. I had no clue. My imaginary friends were not imaginary. I had the whole, stereotypical imaginary friends. Um, I always had that feeling that I didn't fit in, and I didn't know why. Until fast forward to my like mid 20s or whatnot, when my mom all of a sudden drops a bombshell, like, "Oh yeah, you have this in your bloodline." I'm like, "You couldn't have told me sooner."
Right.
Right? So that was kind of frustrating. Like, you're telling me now, right? But it's like, all right, it came out. Um, since as early as I could remember, like 9 or 10, I realized I was messing around with certain things. So it wasn't like hindsight's always 2020. So I didn't realize what it was leading into when of course, when I was like 9 or 10. But I didn't realize that I had an addicted personality. And sure enough, later on, that would turn into a full blown addict. And that's
Right.
what led me on my path, because when I was in my early 20s, I got introduced to Reiki. I got introduced to this healing energy, to the whole metaphysical world, crystals, sage and Palo Santo, doing the whole salt cleanse, all that good stuff. But I didn't really know what to do with it
Mm,
until my mid 30s. So my mid 30s, that's when my addiction, of course, had spiraled out of control, and I didn't know what to do. So at the time, I was working on a farm in Anza, California, and what ended up happening was I was given uh, a little bit of mushrooms and a little bit of acid, and I sat there after meditating for 40 days out in the desert. I was meditating every day, a few hours a day. I finally decided to take these as sacraments. I use them for something good, not just to trip out. And I placed my intent to go to another realm. I meditated with them for about 30 minutes before I even took both of them. And I took both of them. I took like 2 tabs of acid with an eighth of shrooms, and I blasted off. Long story short, I got in touch with Source Energy. Source Energy explained a few things to me. He saw my struggles and he asked what I wanted to do. And he had a sense of humor. We joked around a little bit, and he pretty much was says, "Okay, I'm taking you back. Um, and when you get back there, you're going to be in alignment to what it is that you need to do." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do this." So sure enough, the very next day, after being completely down and off of everything, is when everything happened. Like, when you study Usui Reiki, you realize that this man went into the mountains for 21 days, meditated with nothing but water, fasted for those 21 days, and Usui Reiki got a download. I feel I took the shortcut. It just went bam straight into it.
right.
But I feel I also accomplished the same thing, and I got that download. That day, I ended up going to a neighbor's house across the street, and I'll never forget the whole breakthrough that happened that day. That was, I guess, what you would call my first Reiki miracle. Was able to connect to her stepmom that had passed. I was able to describe her in full detail, to the point when she went out and dug a picture of her. We were both in awe. Like, I described one
Wow.
of the pictures to a T, that she had hidden away for years that she hadn't looked at. She goes, "How did you see them?" Like, it's coming in right now. That led to me bringing a message through from her mom. which was very emotional. It was about forgiveness, and she just couldn't do it because the mom ignored some things that happened with her daughter. So it was just
Mm.
a big old mess, and she just was still angry and hadn't released. I said, okay, look, my job is here just to tell you this, right? And then the third thing that happened with that too is her daughter's higher self came and sat next to me on the couch and was like, I need your help. I need to give you a message. I need you to tell my mom this. And I started seeing these images of my friend's grandpa, right? And I'm like, why am I seeing? And I mentioned my friend's name, Nate, and that was the connection. So I learned that spirit is going to give you something, and you have to find the connection. So I
Right.
was like, Nate, and she goes, oh my God, that's her boyfriend right now. That's giving her all sorts of trouble. And I started describing this building, and she goes, oh my God, that's the courthouse that we have to go to for this. And I'm like, you have to do that. So sure enough, they went ahead and took action and took care
Right.
of that. But that was day one, right? The second day, um, I'm waking up to pandemonium on the farm. I'm looking at the baby goats, the baby sheep. I'm looking at the baby pigs and everything. There's just blood everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And then I see the paw prints. I could tell the coyotes had come in and tried to take through the fence the little one. So one of them had two of them, a goat and a sheep, both had broken legs. One of them from one of the fangs, the canines in the front, had sheared straight down from the thigh all the way down to the ankle, and like it was just peeled like a banana. Um, and I'm sitting there like, it was muddy. It was uh, midwinter. There was permafrost on the top with mud and all their mess that they make. So it was very difficult to try to catch one of these little things. After falling in their mess for 30 minutes, I just sat there and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I heard a voice, clear as a bell, that said, use Reiki. And I'm like, no, no, no. I just ignored it and I tried it to get myself back in there. And I heard the voice even louder this time, and it was stern. It was like, use Reiki. And I said, okay, all right, I get it. Okay, got it. So I went
Right.
back to the trailer. I pulled out my book. I looked at the distance Reiki symbols, and I meditated, got into that state, and I just sent Reiki to all the animals. Um, all the animals within 2 weeks were fully healed.
Wow.
Um, the owner of the farm could not believe it because I sent them pictures of everything that was happening live. The other workers that were there couldn't believe how that happened. They're like, that is impossible for a broken leg and that flesh wound to heal itself to the point where you can't even tell anything happened in 2 weeks. It's like, all right. Miracle number three happened the day after that. I ended up coming up off the farm. And had some experiences in LA where I helped a couple of people and they were just instantly relieved. And miracle number four was me. And that's when I realized that I needed the healing. So I used the healing on myself, and I knew instantly that was it. That was the turning point to my recovery. That was when I saw what potential I truly had within me, and that's when I started aligning myself to my gifts. I got back into tarot, back into cards and cartomancy, whatever form of divination I can get, pendulums, crystals, and I really focused on healing myself.
Right.
That's when a lot of the stuff that I had read in my mid 20s came back. A lot of the Carlos Castaneda, which was a healer has to heal himself to be able to heal others.
Mm.
And that's when like just the final missing pieces of the puzzles clicked, and I knew what I had to do. I knew my purpose, and ever since then, I've been in alignment to my purpose.
I love it. I want to trickle back because the addiction is huge, and I do have a lot of huge following with people who have struggled, clean, struggling in their path. What what do you, when you look back at that, what really made you or kept you stuck in the cycle of addiction before you were just like,
Escaping the pain.
okay,
It's an escapist tendency. And addiction is not chemical, it's mostly behavioral. Yeah, because what I found out is it only took, at least from in my experience, it only took me a few days to kick the stuff. Like 3 days off of weed, 5 days at the most.
right,
Alcohol was just like a week and flushing the system out. Meth was the same. It was 2 weeks and getting some sleep, getting some food in you, rehydrating because that stuff really dehydrates you. But pretty much, well, it was. I realized that it wasn't chemical. What it was the environment, and the past trauma that I had suffered that was keeping me in that vicious circle.
Right.
because it would resurface. And it's the number one thing that takes out addict is resentment. When you're holding and harboring a resentment, um, it'll come back to, it'll take you out because it
Right.
starts festering and it's like a splinter underneath the skin. Eventually you build up that pus ball, and it has to go somewhere and it takes the toxic out with it. But
Right.
for addicts, that becomes a lifelong cyst,
Right.
that's slowly oozing out. So you really have to get in there and get to the source. And it's either the past trauma, the inner child, the combination of the two,
Right.
um, mommy and daddy issues, all sorts of stuff. And the number one thing I would say is lack of self love. Um, because when
Right.
you love yourself, um, when you respect yourself, you won't do anything to hurt yourself. You do
True.
everything you possibly can to preserve yourself. And I
Yeah.
realized that I didn't love myself. I couldn't tolerate the person that I thought I was told I was. And that's
Right.
the other thing too, is people start telling you who you are and it causes this identity crisis. And after
Right.
a while, you're just like, fuck it. Boop, pop some
Right.
pills, do whatever to escape that. And then all of a sudden you don't care no more. But when you come back down, you start hearing it again. And you're like, okay, I don't want to hear it. Okay, let me go using it.
Right. Right.
And that's pretty much, well, my experience with addiction was the self-love, the inner child, and dealing with some stuff, that I didn't know how.
Right, right. That's the coming into this, I feel that we and I know it's a part of our process, but we're not taught core healing. We're not taught to get down there. And because most of us are taught like sweep it under the rug, you'll be fine, you're a survivor, you're good, you're strong, be strong and just get over it. Everything is get over it, get over it, get over it instead of let me sit with this, let me go back to that child self of mine and deal with
Right, right.
what I
And it's
didn't
usually
deal
a
with.
quick fix. Here's some pills, here's some
Right,
pills, here's some
right,
pills. And when you start Googling the side effects of those pills, it's more of what you're trying to fucking get rid of. It's like, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing to me?
right,
So yeah, so I realized what I had to do, and it was an inner battle.
right. Now I was working and I conquered my demons. I accepted my purpose and the goddess I became.